Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
Before we begin, I want to call attention to our upcoming books coming out this fall. Hulk Grand Design Collection will be in stores in time for Christmas, but you need to pre-order it now from your local comic shop or online, wherever you get books. Red Room Trigger Warnings, the second season collection of Ed Piscor's over-the-top splatterpunk gore-fest celebration, coming out in September. Again, pre-order that now so they know how many to print and ship to your local comic shops. Makes a really great companion to the Antisocial Network. Notice the continuing themes on those covers. We will be on the road this October. If you are in Columbus, October 6th through 9th, please come out to CXC and talk comics with us. We will also be in Baltimore Comic-Con the end of October, the 28th to the 30th, the birthplace of Cartoonist Kayfabe. Once again, come out, say hello, and I will be at Jacksonville Public Library for the Comic and Zine Fest October 22nd. And now, down to business. Deadpool, number 1, Joe Madureira. 18, 19 years old at this point. This is when I first come upon Joe Mad's work. I knew he was young then, did not realize how young he was. And at this point, I'm into Image Comics. This is one of those few Marvel comics that I bought back in the day and was blown away by this young man's art.
Absolutely, man. It was classmates of mine that introduced me to this series. I don't know that this was still that era, dude. I really discovered comic shops late. And I do not think that this had newsstands. I think it's a direct market book. Regardless of this, maybe, I don't know. It was not at Kmart. It was not at the Rite Aid. But from the cover, just the build of that figure is solid and strong and is very pleasing to the eyes. Can't quite explain it. Bob Harris described Madureira's style as bouncy. And I think you see it in here, very curvy, elegant curves. That small head is cool.
This was a departure, too, from the Image style
Absolutely.
of pinups, where it was almost like big tough guys in tough guy poses. And that bounce is present there. You know, your legs and arms are kind of bent in a way that's... It doesn't feel like he's holding this pose or that he can hold this pose for 5 minutes. It looks like you paused it for 1 second.
Yeah. This is really ushering in some new stuff because up to this point, there's so much Gilbert of Jim Lee's style. And maybe there is 5% of that in Joe Mad stuff. And it would probably not even be in the line art, but in the dynamics of the imagery. But he's really bringing some fresh material to this. I fucking love this movie.
I've never seen this.
I've rented it 1,000 times. I read it, would rent it every weekend. Because it was the best superhero flick that was out for a decade.
You know what's funny is this is a 1993 release, August. We looked at Deathmate Red, which was also fall 1993, and I'm looking at these dudes. They could be the same bad guys that are in Deathmate. You know what's funny? Going back, and I haven't looked at this probably since 1993. Looking at it now, and having looked at Joe Mad, some of his X-Men issues and Age of Apocalypse stuff, I kind of love this version of him. He's only drawing in this style for a short time. He kind of keeps pushing his style into what we think of as his more mature style. And it's very different than this. This is really attractive style to me. If he'd have stuck it out here, there's some Alan Davis, there's some different pieces here. Like you say, it's not really that Image style exactly. And there's a lot I like in it.
Sure, yeah. But even at this level, I think he was already influential to people. Like Joe Quesada starts drawing gloves and gloved fingers that look like this. I don't think he was exactly doing that beforehand.
That's a good hand.
We're seeing these twisted, contorted faces and shit that Joe Mad is sort of known, like this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. That's there already.
Yeah,
that's
one
a
big
hallmark of Joe
eyeball,
Mad.
right?
Dude, I was totally drawing ninja swords and shit with just electrical tape on the hilt rather than that ornate whatever.
And I mentioned Alan Davis. Mark Farmer, an inker I associate with Alan Davis's work, and I wonder if that's some of the flavor that I'm getting is coming from a veteran inker, which you would often see, Marvel and DC would pair up maybe a hot new penciler with that veteran inker.
We talked about when you copy stuff and you're being so deliberate and not taking in the lessons. It's when you really start drawing stuff yourself where you understand what this means. These lines right here, where it's the end of the front of the face, the top of the forehead.
Yeah, they talk about planes on the face.
Right, yeah. And I remember copying this kind of stuff and like copying those like whiskers with no idea of what, like, it's just like, hey man, Jim Lee does that.
By the way, the other place you put that, on the crotch.
By the way, just real quick, if you go back, aren't you feeling a little Matt Allison in this?
Oh yeah,
A little Kangol?
I never would have thought of that until you said it, but totally, like that face.
This kind of shit.
Yeah, big time.
And cutting in to the shape with the lines, the proportions.
Yeah, that's a really good call. This feels like the series too that fleshes out Deadpool. When I think
annoying.
of like Deadpool, yes, but when I think of Deadpool and kind of like what that character is, it feels like a big chunk of it is from this series.
Absolutely, it establishes, like maybe he had some pithy comments or whatever, but the merc with the mouth.
Oh yeah, I mean look how much dialogue and that's all Deadpool just chatter. I was reading this and I'm like, oh, this is fun. I kind of like this. By about page 11, I'm like, shut up.
It's nonsense.
Just shut up.
It makes you hate Kayfabe in a way, and it's also the thing where like. When I bring rookies and shit to the comic conventions with me or whatever, I always tell them like, stay far away from Deadpool cosplayers because those people take it as a license to be fucking idiots.
Right.
By and large, man, like they chose that costume to be an asshole, and it's the character, but you still might get knocked out by somebody.
I know they say Merc with the mouth is his gimmick. But I also wonder, like, when you look at some of the Image comics that are coming out at this time and popular, this is such a contrast to have a character that's like this much dialogue. I can't think of any character at Image that did this amount of dialogue. And I wonder if that's a conscious thing on their part of like trying to separate their books.
I don't think it was conscious. I don't think there's any conscious shit.
Joe Mad, I'm shocked though by the level of the cartooning. Because we also
beautiful.
talk about early cartoonists and how like maybe you do too many of these long shots because you're insecure. He's doing medium shots and close-ups. Like, it's really accomplished.
Yeah, it's called an establishing shot for a reason. You do a good one of these and you don't have to really lean into it that much. But this is the changing of the guard. You got J. Scott Campbell over there in Jim Lee's studio, kind of pushing stuff in his way. And you got Joe Mad doing his piece, man, and he's sticking within the rubric of what is a Marvel comic, but he's playing with the idiom of manga here.
And you often talk about Joe Mad doing the one, popping one big eye. It's here. It's here from very early on in his work. Gets a lot of expression out of the Deadpool mask.
Yeah. Never seen a cooler cane.
Well,
they made.
I still haven't seen a cool cane.
They made a figure that like. When the toys were coming out, it was such a business that there were 2 Kane figures, man.
Wow.
And one of them is based on this one. In fact, like there's a series of the figures. Like there's a Black Tom Cassidy that comes out of this with the fucked up eye and all that shit. But when you see these bits here, can't help but think of the JR Cable.
That's fair, and it does kind of stick with the cartooniness of some of the more cartoony elements. Like these things, that's something I see with them. I don't know. There's a silly's the word I'm thinking, but it's not quite what I'm saying. Like
it's over the top.
It is over the top. Yeah. That's the way to look at
Isn't
it.
Isn't it so
Excess.
badass looking?
This is my favorite illustration in this issue.
Yeah,
I really like it.
Yeah, Rifts is sick. I have this book and I just got it from my cousin or something like that, and there's so much cool duotone artwork in there.
I was going to say, I don't remember the color versions, because there's a lot of black and white of this version with the duo shade, which is what I usually think of. So seeing this in color, I was like, oh yeah, that looks really good.
Yeah.
Very cartoony Juggernaut, sticking with that theme.
Yeah, it's Joe Mad, and there's that bounce
Totally.
to it.
You can even see, like, even the supporting characters on the page have that bouncy quality. Like, look at it's madness, the amount of movement in these characters.
Oh yeah, Keystone Cops like.
Yes.
And the size of the big guy and the little, that's you find these compositions in Shonen Jump.
I was going to say totally. There's some manga-esque elements there, and it's not in the style or the inking.
It's the
but
idea.
It's in the composition.
Yeah.
And he looks great. He looks tough. He looks menacing. He looks like that big character that, I don't know, man. I was always a fan of like the big brawler character. Nails it.
Yeah. Not a bad aperture opening up.
Yeah, it makes for a fun panel.
Yeah, it's a good panel, and it's not much pencil mileage. Like the key to doing these kind of job comics is figuring that part out, man, because they got you on a schedule. So like the guys who we know as being like superstars are people who are able to figure out how to economically draw cool shit.
Yeah, get it done within that schedule and have some shots that don't look like they're running out of time.
Right. Not easy to do.
It's a nice, this is a good, like, cliffhanger moment, too. Because obviously there's some reveal. We're not going to get that yet.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that. You want to know what they're seeing, but not yet.
Look at this little weird guy, man. Troll from Deathmate Red.
Yeah,
got a haircut.
Missing his hairpiece. I mean, that is spot on.
Yeah, grab that shit, man. Almost the same colors.
It's uncanny. Those glasses and everything. Really weird.
There's a bunch of call and response.
I guess so.
Shots being fired.
Yeah, and that's part of, I guess, the storyline within this miniseries is Tolliver's will. Everybody's chasing this document, and he's involved with it. So
Yeah,
we're not
about
going to
3
get
or 4 people.
much of him in this issue, but that's kind of what he is as a subplot that's building to the main story.
Great pose, huh?
There's quite a few of them. Yeah, it's really good. Good hands, good gloves. Hands so hard to draw, man. Again, to be a young cartoonist doing it. I was thinking about Joe Mad's age as we've looked at some stuff of his lately. He must leave comics when he's like 28 or something.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, sure.
Which is wild to think, like, comes in when he's 16, right? So dedicated and loving comics, attains a high level of success and then moves on.
But that's
kinda
the
quickly.
weird. That's the weird thing. Like he wasn't like so about comics. Like in interviews and stuff, he's one of these guys who's an exceptional talent, who kind of was there, right place, right time. But he was never committed to comics. So he did his piece and then you know used his money for seed money for a video game company, all that, which is where his passions lie, I feel.
Yeah, I guess so. This is kind of a neat little 3-panel piece, especially for like, you know, a half-page row, but showing the arm getting fixed up. Hey, I was looking at this. So this is Weapon X.
Yeah.
And he wears this X on his collar as Weapon X. He's not an X-Men. It's the same exact X as X-Men.
Yeah. Copyright infringement?
It surprises me that editorial is down with that. Unless you're going to make some sort of storyline connection between X-Men and Project X or Weapon X or whatever that's called, it just seems strange. And it is funny to think of like X-Men and Weapon X as like branding themselves with these little cool, you know, in case they want a merchandise or something. You want to have
Merchandising.
want to have their spread shop, you know, sell some stuff. Another great fist.
Wow, yeah, it's McFarlane-esque in there with some of that line work.
Super detailed. You get the seams, you get the shadows, knuckles, everything. And would do the cuffs on the gloves.
Yes. Cuffs
Fan of that.
on the feet.
Yeah, that was a piece that always kind of added to it. And a lot of fighting throughout this issue where you get to really see his figure work and how accomplished that is. Mm-hmm. And just finding inventive compositions, you know, within a fight.
I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like that's a Storm Shadow on the action figure box.
That's funny.
Not 100% sure. I've seen a Storm Shadow like that painted.
Does look similar. Pretty believable bump on this one. And it turns out they're fighting over information that neither one of them has.
Right. They both think that the other has it.
Yeah. So dumb.
It's a really dumb comic, but that looks so beautiful.
I'm very impressed with this Catwoman drawing. I spent some time looking at this comic and trying to figure out, like, who drew this ad.
Doesn't it look like it was formed out of the Valiant camp or something, though?
The color looks like Valiant color. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who would have drawn it, but like the Penguin, it's a really good likeness. No idea who this artist is. Curious if somebody can put that in the comments below, because I do think those are really good likenesses.
Yeah. When you see that comic book type imagery, it almost always has to come out in continuity.
Yeah, that's what I think too. And there was an ad on one of these that looked like continuity coloring, but the line work was so bad. I thought, like, could that have come out of continuity? Kind of an interesting page layout piece there.
Yeah, establishing your badass cloaked figure. You know, that's a good drawing, and he's just not breaking a sweat. Probably storytelling wise, you might want to have him advance a little bit more after dispatching somebody. You know, he's in the same pose.
Yeah, and to have him going right to left is unusual. Mm-hmm. Makes me wonder if that's an influence of somebody that's into manga at the time and maybe reading unflipped manga at the time, because it's so atypical that he wouldn't be moving to the right.
Yeah.
I had to think of Mike Saints.
Last great era of the 16-bit generation, dude.
Continuing on with our bad guy who goes to the Weapon X training program files, where Garrison and Wade, they're right next to each other in alphanumerical filing, right?
Slayback. And they sell it like we care.
Yeah, there's nothing less interesting to me than this character.
Yeah.
I mean, wow. He's alive again.
Just take the S away from it. Layback.
Not too good. But let's go back to our other subplot and see what Tom Cassidy looks like.
I feel like we saw this guy in some of those Stephen Platt Moon Knights.
He's
maybe it was Even Prophet.
I was going to say like a Steven Seagal movie. He seems like such the typical early 90s bad guy look.
I like to think of this as a tangent.
That's a funny tangent.
Imagine that's one face.
That's hilarious.
Because it's like side view of eye. Here's the nose. Here's the mouth.
What I like here, to me, that's Joe Mad.
Uh-huh.
That eyeball is so much a Joe Mad eyeball. Like you get those glimpses of where the direction he's going to go stylistically.
Take that gutter away.
It's so close. It's so funny. That little tiny nose at the top would be great.
Totally, because the line here would cut about there.
It works. That shadow even continues into the mustache.
Hamburger. There he is, dude. Black Tom is back. And fucking Black Tom Cassidy disappears in the 70s. Oh, no. That's the Rob Liefeld used him. That's right. Never mind. I was going to say, like, Rob Liefeld in X-Force used him, and he falls down that elevator shaft or some shit.
Is that true? I don't remember that. I don't remember a lot of the X-Force run at this point. It's been a long time.
Yeah. I think Black Tom Cassidy and Juggernaut are there with, like, Gideon and stuff.
Okay.
But I was about to say, like before Rob brought him back, like, Black Tom was, like, used it in the 70s, and that was it, man. There was, like, a whole decade where there was not, like, one Black Tom Cassidy thing.
Yeah, but what about Slayback? This blurb is such, like, those 90 comics, like the abyss of the 90s comics is summed up in this blurb, because it's like plus Slayback, the executive elite, yawn, Vanessa ? Like I don't understand any of this. And the return of Sluggo, is that a Nancy joke? I think this is kind of neat that they're running an ad like this where like you're doing the negative of the artwork. That's okay in itself, but when you combine it with like a cover that's like this with the gigantic logo, I feel like that's kind of fun to see them doing some stuff design-wise, like trying to, do something different.
Yeah. Something
loud, something a little bit more 90s designish.
It was noticeable.
Yeah, it's definitely different. But blown away by Joe Mad is this is his first full comic, right?
It might have been Excalibur, like an issue or two of Excalibur, and I have those. Like I picked those up on the newsstand just because it looked cool. It was like the only fucking Excalibur comics I had. Didn't know the guy's name. Obviously, he was nobody. But I think those might have come out before this.
Well, I'm impressed. I was impressed back then, and even more so now.
They came out 2 months before this, or
right.
like super close.
Yeah, it's wild to me. It just feels very accomplished. I don't know what this dude's doing in high school, but man, I bet not much of a social life and a lot of just comics work.
Yeah. I mean, just like he's got it.
Draw some more.
Like it's hard to say though, man, because I mean the guy is very well spoken, doesn't seem homunculus, fit, a reasonable cat, so handsome. So like I'm sure he had a life, but he just has some extra ability that just the average bear just does not, man.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like,
influences generation.
Is it just talent, or is it like did he find some pieces early on that really helped?
The manga stuff, and specific like the video, the SNK fighting game stuff that he discovered and brought to comics.
It lends itself well to the superhero genre.
It really does. And we looked at like Ninja High School, right? And like Ben Dunn bringing like manga flavor to comics. He's not as accomplished as like a figure drawer, but this dude is like, he understands muscle and form and volume and all the stuff that you would need to understand for a superhero comic. And then he's bringing that SNK flavor to mainstream comics and legitimately influenced a generation of pencilers going forward, probably till about 2005 there were dudes drawn this way.
I'm also curious, is there any other Deadpool piece that we're missing. Like between the couple of appearances in X-Force and New Mutants and then this, right? Like this is the piece that really kind of gets Deadpool, I don't know, it launches him into high gear.
Is this the first miniseries?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess so, man. I mean, he's in like the Greg Capullo issue, so like he's in a lot of X-Force after Rob Liefeld. You know, they're making editorial callbacks to issue 22 and shit like that. But Deadpool, just the aesthetics of Deadpool hit immediately. I was there. I picked this shit up. I drew on my bedroom wall the New Mutants logo. I created my own New Mutants team because I wanted this Deadpool character to be in there more. When he showed up in X-Force 2, like that is the comic that I still have from that time period that is the most tattered.
Right.
All the stuff that I love the most, I had to rebuy just for disintegration reasons of me just destroying those comics, looking at them over and over again. That's the one that I still have, and it is barely functional as a comic because I looked at it so much and dug it so much. And then, you know, he showed up in the Greg Capullos and shit. And then I guess it's this. I know that Rob said to you guys, like, it was the video games or something that like put Deadpool on the map. But I disagree, man, because like I was a kid there, and there were kids who were fucking with Deadpool. Like, they knew Deadpool.
Yeah.
And then when this comes out and it gave you license to be an asshole, like...
It's fascinating to think of these characters that have this staying power and that become that almost transcendental kind of character.
Yeah.
Because like this is the biggest Marvel character since 1990, right? I'm not overlooking anyone.
It made so much sense too that it's a kid who made it. Like, of course, a kid is going to understand what other kids are
right
are wanting. And what did Rob Liefeld say in our shoot interview? I want to give you a ninja with a sword and a gun.
Yeah, right, yes.
Like, that was the cool thing about Snake Eyes to him. He's got a Uzi and swords.
It's hilarious to think of, like, that kind of deconstruction where it's like, oh, yeah, of course. It's the simplest formula ever whenever you put it that way. And then add some comedy on his mouth, give him a smart-ass mouth to go with it.
Yeah, which does come later, I feel like. And, you know, same deal with when he created Cable, and you see the little paper where he created Cable, and he's just talking about, like, tentpole movies. He's just talking about, like, cross between Terminator and Schwarzenegger from Predator and, like all this kind of shit. Like, he was a kid who knew what kids wanted to fucking check out. And we immediately responded to that.
Yeah.
You good to go?
Yes.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available. Jimmy, what's out there, man?
Hulk Grand Design. It is time to order this at your local comic shop or online, wherever you buy books. It'll be out in time for Christmas with a glow-in-the-dark, practically fluorescent green, blacklight active cover in an oversized collection. So pick that up, but order it now. Let your shop know you want one of those in time for Christmas. And join me on patreon.com/JimRugg, where you can see a lot more of my comics and process.
Red Room Trigger Warnings trade paperback hitting the shelves in September, mere weeks away from the release of this book. My best book to date, my 10th book in 10 years, Jimmy. Super proud of this, and I thank everybody for supporting the work like they have been. Good.
Looks like it'll look pretty good on the shelf next to this guy.
Absolutely, man. So pre-order those comics right now. Tell your short story that you want them so that they order properly and that we print enough of those suckers up. And if you're interested in future Red Room comics, before they hit paper, you could go to my Patreon right now. I'm serializing a couple pages a week. Every Tuesday, $3. You're going to be able to also read all of Antisocial Network and all of Trigger Warnings there as well. It might be 6 months before the first issue hits the shelves of this new round, man. And what else have we got out?
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts and merchandise at the links below this video.
Another great way to support that Cartoonist Kayfabe channel. Give them those marching orders, Jimmy. We'll be on our way.
Read more comics.